So this is the, whatever date it is today.
November 17th, Thursday,
Thank you.
November 17th.
November 17th, thank you. Meeting of the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee. And it is 1:04 and I'm calling the meeting to order. So here we are. We can review and approve the minutes from September 22nd. Arlington did those minutes and they were on the Battle Road Scenic Byway webpage on Concord's civil website. So any comments on the meeting or meeting minutes?
I had just one. This is for September 22nd.
Yes.
The Minuteman is the 2 words for the national park. Sorry, I didn't see. I would have emailed it directly to whoever wrote them, but I just looked at them.
Simone can probably bear this out. It's a very common confusion
I know.
for Minuteman and historical instead of historic. So, but it's very common.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, I know it because I did it wrong when it was my turn to do them.
Okay, are there any other comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. As
Sir.
distributed.
I'm sorry, is there a second? Okay, George, I see you. Okay, Noel, we can do that. We can do Arlington
Yes,
and then Lexington,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes,
Concord, yes, and the park.
Yes.
Okay, those pass. That was easy. We were to have an opportunity potentially for updates.
hold on, Nancy. I thought we were just voting for September.
We were.
Minutes. Okay,
And,
so we've,
and there are others, there were others on the page that I have looked at those, and those were approved at earlier meetings.
no, I'm talking about the October minutes that's on the agenda.
But
for
they
today.
haven't, they weren't on the agenda, but Richard submitted them. But they
Yeah, I
haven't been
apologize
posted.
for not sending them out sooner.
Yeah, they haven't been posted, so we shouldn't be voting on them.
Okay, well, I am seeing them on the agenda, but so fine, we can look at it next time. Doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Our agenda doesn't say that, but I seem to remember seeing more than one set of minutes, but I just got them later this morning, Richard, was it?
Right.
This morning. So I don't think other people have seen them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so moving on, project updates, obviously. Chris Clem is not here and has no additional news about the grant. It's a little mysterious, but I hope at this point maybe but they give us good news in January. So we won't have the byway update or grant update, and then the Route 2A project. No one is here from District 4 with any update on that. I know that Josh is still looking for information on the 128 bridge. Do Lexington folks have a comprehensible, simple depiction of what the 128 bridge project is going to look like? It's going to go to bid in something like January, I think.
We do. I think I have the 75% design plans. I can pop them up on the screen.
That's okay. I think if you post them, if you send them to me or Ann, we
Okay.
can put that up on the Battle Road Scenic Byway page on Concord's website.
Okay.
I think the essential is that it's going to be reduced from 2 lanes in each direction to 1 lane in each direction with a bike lane on the bridge. So the whole width of the road is going to be narrowed, and there's going to be a roundabout at either end.
Yeah, that's a great summary. I still need to see a visual.
Right.
Keep it in mind. Okay,
Excuse me, Richard, for some reason I have a brain freeze whenever I try and think of what the reason for this is.
Okay, so
So-
this bridge was essentially going to be reconstructed in 2016, but because of federal glitches, it didn't get done. But one of the things that MassDOT is proposing is all along Route 128, I-95, is whenever bridges are replaced, they want to replace it with whatever bridge, and on either end they want to have roundabouts. So not just this one, but all future ones. So when routes 4 and 225, when that bridge is reconstructed, they want to have roundabouts at either end of that.
Wow.
and it's
Now-
to slow traffic, right?
And they're going to do that all along Route 128 whenever they replace new bridges. That's their policy.
And is it a traffic anticipated that speeds will slow down?
So it's to help the traffic flow and to slow speeds down.
You know, I wonder how it's going to work out for the Route 2A roundabout heading towards Hanscom Field, because sometimes there are backups right from Hanscom Drive all the way
Right.
to 128.
Yep.
That was done on
And-
purpose, you know. I can give you the history of that later.
The backup was done on purpose.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If you make a road bigger, straighter, wide, you know, not as hilly, you're speeding up traffic.
Sorry.
If you have other kinds of constraints, it tends to make it less desirable. And backed up traffic is one. Anyway. Bob, does that answer your question about the 128 bridge project?
Yes, yes. Hopefully I'll be able to retain that in my ever diminishing cerebral cortex.
Nancy,
Yes,
Jane here.
yeah, Jane, sorry.
That's all right. I keep wondering when I hear about this rotary on the west side of the bridge, there's a lot of rock cliffs there. How are they going to fit it in?
Well, even where can one find that as a project idea even? I think it's a conceptual idea still.
To
So-
put, but.
At Old
Richard
Mass
just
Ave.
said that it's, or what's your name, Sheila? Said that there's, plants, 75% plants.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the bridge still.
I'm sorry, yeah.
My fault.
How do you do that?
It's going to replace what's there now. It's pretty level where they're going to put the roundabout, so they don't have to cut any cliffs.
That's going to be a cute roundabout, boy.
It's
I
going to
wanna
be
see how- What?
it's a roundabout. It's not going to be a rotary, so it's going to be small.
Yeah, because one
It's
lane,
gonna have to be small. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening right there.
yeah,
Will they eliminate the light?
we don't know. We haven't seen the plans.
No, the
Unless
light-
Okay,
unless
thank you.
Sheila might have some.
Oh,
Do you want me
wow.
to pull them up, Nancy, or no? I'll send
No.
them out. All right, I'm sending them into the share file now.
Okay.
The sun is out and it's snowing like crazy.
Where are you?
I'm in Lexington.
Knowing where I
Okay.
am.
Well, that sounds like a member update, but we should probably start with Arlington. If nobody, I mean, I don't think there's anything more to report there. There is a question and Josh is looking for stuff that for the 128 bridge project that might be easy to share. So he said he would do that. But if Sheila has it, that might be even more direct. So for member updates, can we move along to that? In which case Arlington's up. And looks like George's hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the group know that we've had a historic sewer replacement issue at the Jason Russell House. The day after, or the day of Town Day, we had sewage bubbling up in the yard. And long story short, we had to replace 150 feet of sewer pipe from the house to Jason Street.
Ooh,
Then we had to reline about 75 feet of sewer pipe that's in back of the house. But I think we got our money's worth because that sewer line was laid in 1896.
oh, wow.
So it was a clay pipe that lasted 126 years. So I don't think we have too much to complain about. But if any of you have sewer work to be done, we know a good place. We know a good contractor. So
Oh, that's
keep this
great.
in mind.
That's great.
Paul, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just mention that the final report for the conceptual design of the Foot of the Rocks project is now complete, and it's posted on the Town of Arlington website. But I also have a PDF, so if any of you would like me to send that to you directly, just let me know. We've gotten a lot of good comments that were then incorporated into the report. And I myself am very happy with how the project has come out. And our project team is now at the stage where we'll start looking around for sources of funding for this. We have put in a proposal to the Arlington Community Preservation Committee. Their advice to us was to break the project up into pieces. We just put in one proposal for the overall project, but based on their recommendation, we're now going to put it into a detailed design phase and then a construction phase, and hoping that we'll secure funding to get started on the detailed design by early part of 2023, and the aim is to have this completed in 2024.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. Lexington? Nothing going on in Lexington, probably.
Well done.
Julie, want to talk about the streetscape?
Streetscape's done. They're trying to schedule a ribbon cutting, but they're yet to have come up with a date. But that should be happening in the next month, I suppose.
Oh, so you're gonna do that even in cold weather? That'd be fun.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
So I'll just say soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be great. Congratulations. That's quite the project. Really quite the project. Anything else?
I don't think so. What do you think,
Richard,
Jean and Richard?
Okay. Lexington, Lincoln, back to Bob.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of that is worth mentioning, a resident of Mill Street filed a complaint against the Minuteman Tech High School regarding excessive lighting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, an MIT professor went out there with a couple of calibrated light meters, and the light levels are 3 times what was promised. So I don't know how that's going to settle out, but and I'm curious, is the park for Simone, is the park concerned about nighttime lighting? I know the Hanscom Field itself is quite a generator of nighttime lighting, so I don't know if this is a drop in the bucket, but what's your attitude about it?
So obviously, we prefer to have less light than excessive light. We haven't had any complaints. Obviously, the park is closed and at dark, so we haven't had any direct complaints from visitors. And at this point, the Hygenian residence is empty, which is right there at Mill Street. But our preference would always be less light, better for the nightlife, for the wildlife in particular. But that's interesting.
Okay, well, I'll keep everybody up to date on how that settles out.
Yeah, I wanted to
Yeah.
add to that. The building inspector is aware of it and has contacted Minuteman. I also received a response from Minuteman that they will be making appropriate changes to the scheduling and brightness first thing this morning. Apparently, that was the plan. So I'll follow up with them as well, but they are aware and are working to correct it.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
And
Okay.
that's Lincoln's building inspector, right? Of course.
Yes.
And
Yes.
is the whole project in Lincoln? I don't recall.
Not all of it, but I believe most of the project is in Lincoln.
Yeah,
The lighting
build-
is
yeah,
in Lincoln.
The building
That's-
is in Lincoln. Some of the athletic fields are in
Yeah.
Lexington.
Oh, okay, that's the split. Okay, but the athletic fields are
Yeah.
right.
The athletic field lighting was also excessive, but it's not visible from the residents that filed a complaint. So her complaint did not cover the athletic fields, but the athletic field is actually the closest thing to Minuteman Park. So,
Yeah. And it's substantial, I bet. Has anybody seen it at night? Is it?
oh,
lit
it's
up now?
it's unbelievable.
Oh, I
It's-
haven't seen
puts
it.
Fenway Park to shame.
It is
Really?
only on for games and shortly after is my understanding, so it's not all the time. The lighting in the parking lot, I believe, is on most of the night, if not the entire night. Bob, you're there, so I don't know. Is it on all night?
It's on all night.
Yeah,
yes.
so that's why that was more of an issue, I believe.
Yeah, wow. Okay, Lincoln, that leaves Concord, and Beth was not able to come. I know she has some updates. We have a special town meeting coming in January with several articles that I'm still trying to figure out. But it's a little bit quiet, except for with the Historic Districts Commission. There's a little bit of controversy about a development that's in town, and that's always something to watch. And we're just waiting, a lot of us are just waiting to hear about the Byway grant. So that's about all we have. And Simone, do you have any updates?
Yeah, just quickly, our signage contractor was on site in the park last week to review the inventory we had pulled together, as well as to go all through the park, as well as the surrounding towns to take a look at the small brown signage that you might see sort of in Concord Center and other places that helps to orientate and lead folks into the park. So we are expecting our first deliverable to share after the holidays. So I will be sure to share that with the committee for any comments as part of our review process. So we were just great to have them on board and get started quickly.
Yeah, I think you said you copied us on a request for information, some information. I haven't really had a chance to look at it. But did it go to DPW people, or should we be sending it around?
No, so we had the chance to meet with the town of Concord's planning team, Marcia and Ann and some Erin and some others. So
About signage.
Yep, about the signage,
Okay,
particularly in
yeah.
town. Yep. So so they have been looped in as well.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you. Okay. Our next meeting.
Nancy, Sheila has a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Sheila, sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, Simone. Thanks,
Yeah,
Nancy.
I'm grateful
that's right,
for
you
the
got your-
assistance because my eyes are not up to par.
Something to note, I meant to say this in our little update, is the MBTA communities required zoning for multifamily housing for, I think, Arlington and Lexington, and then into Lincoln. That's one of our MBTA routes. So the planning board is looking to zone along that route. So that's may be of interest to the committee. But all the towns were in this one together.
Yeah, Lincoln has convened a working group to really study the issue and see if we can come up with a strategy that won't completely change the character of the town.
Yeah, I mean, we have a more denser areas than you do. So it won't.
Well, your requirement, I suspect, is a much smaller percentage of your total number of residences in town. If we fully complied and the residences actually got built, we would be expanding the number of residences in town by, I don't know, 25–30%.
Oh, because you're below that lower threshold, right?
Um,
Yeah.
I don't remember the technicalities, but basically it would be a huge impact to Lincoln.
Oh.
And then
And are you familiar with this? I'm not.
so the
No, I'm
planning
not
board,
really either.
Just-
I'm not involved. I'm not involved with that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is Concord outside the scope of this intent?
No, it was mentioned the other day, so I think it is within the scope.
And does it have a title? It's MBTA doing something.
Yeah,
It's the Housing Choice Act.
yes,
Housing Choice Act.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can find
Concord-
it on the DHCD website. Concord definitely would come under it. I mean, it's got two
Yeah.
commuter rail stations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it hits
know.
the
That's
buses and the
That's
commuter.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's very good to know.
so in terms of Lexington, there was a workshop to look at where locations might be, and two of the locations are on the byway in Lexington Center and in East Lexington, so as well as other locations.
Okay, who hosted that workshop?
Planning board?
Makes sense. And these are ideas or concepts, or it's legislation? Are there sticks or incentives to do this?
There are sticks to do this at the moment.
Sticks.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Basically, Nancy, if you don't comply, you lose access to state funding for
Yeah.
housing programs.
Yeah, gotcha.
Maybe other things.
Yeah, maybe whatever else.
Yeah. Well, the regulations kind of went further than the legislation did. So,
Yeah, that sometimes happens.
yeah.
It calls something to mind that this is a divergent comment probably, and we won't stay here, but I've been wondering what on earth happened to hats, which would be a great place for something like this to be discussed, but it seems to have fizzled away. So maybe that's a topic offline, but it's curious.
Yeah,
Yes.
I understand there was a meeting of hats within the last 3 months, maybe the first one in a year.
And the first one in a year.
Yeah. I don't know why they haven't met, and they were not using Zoom as the platform, or they were using a webinar format. I'm not really familiar with it, but there was no real opportunity for the public to participate.
I heard something about this.
Yeah, so it was kind of a private meeting almost.
So it's a presentation with a conversation among people who were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else? Thanks, Simone. It's going to be so nice to see decent signs. Really going to be good. Congratulations. Okay, other business. I know we have some other business that was suggested by Bob.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if somebody really knows the ins and outs of that Section 106 process, what are the possible outcomes of that process? Is it just sort of a yes or no as to whether the state agencies have done a good job considering the historic impacts, or is, what are the actual potential results of that?
I'll let
review?
Simone say something about this, but first I want to say that the Concord Historical Commission asked this very question months ago and did not get any response. So kind of that, if if I had the time, I would list all the things that the Byway and the Historical Commission have requested in terms of information about this project and didn't ever get. It would be a long list. And that was one of them. That, you know, we asked, it's a very complicated process, and I wouldn't begin to say I was expert because I've never been this far in the process before. So Simone, do you have anything to add?
Sure. So as it relates to section 106, at this point in the process, it's the requirement of the federal agency to issue what's called a determination of effect. And what that is an understanding, an explanation, and then a request for concurrence on whether the project being proposed would cause an adverse effect. So that's a regulatory term to historic properties within the project area, and they are requesting concurrence from the particular State Historic Preservation Office. So at this point, after this most recent consulting parties meeting with MassDOT, they had indicated that they were looking for any final comments broadly on the project to be taken into consideration as they go ahead to finalize their determination of effect, which they will then send to Federal Highways as the federal agency that's representing this project. Then Federal Highways will review the proposed determination of effect. They will make any changes that they want. And then they will formally send that over to the Massachusetts Shipper's office. So at that point, again, they're requesting concurrence on their finding of effect. So it's not the SHPO that determines what the effect is. They can either concur or not concur with the determination from the federal agency. Once the Massachusetts SHPO sort of responds back, so what MassDOT was indicating was that they were going to propose a finding of no adverse effect to historic properties. So the main historic property that's within the project area is the National Historical Park Historic District. And then if the Massachusetts SHPO concurs with that finding, then at that point, the process as it relates to section 106 has primarily concluded. And then MassDOT can continue with their project. So if the Massachusetts SHPO does not concur with their finding of effect, then the consultation process continues between Federal Highways, the SHPO, MassDOT, and then the consulting parties as well. So does that answer your question, Bob?
Well, it certainly answers why I didn't understand it.
You asked for that.
But the ultimate decision maker on whether a project goes forward, is that totally within the hands of MassDOT, regardless of whether SHPO agrees with whether there's an impact?
So the key to remember is that section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act does not require or mandate preservation. So what it is it establishes the process to consult. So in this particular case, if, for example, the Massachusetts SHPO does not concur with their finding of effect and says that no, they believe it's an adverse effect, essentially at that point, the advisory council is brought in to help work through that disagreement of the finding of effect. And a couple of different things could happen. So with that, then Federal Highways could go back with MassDOT to try to make some adjustments to reevaluate their determination of effect, make adjustments to the project to avoid an adverse effect, or say, okay, we agree it is an adverse effect, take the adverse effect essentially, and then propose mitigation to address the adverse effect. So that way they can conclude the process. So if that's the case, then at that point, they would come back with the consulting parties, and then we would talk about mitigation for the adverse effect. But the key is that in the end, the federal agency and in this particular project, MassDOT, in conjunction with Federal Highways, will determine what their project is going to look like. So section 106 doesn't stop the project. So that's not the purpose of the regulation, the act. It is to make sure that the federal agency is taking into account the potential effects to historic properties and then to try to avoid them. And if they can't avoid them, then to minimize them.
So, so the leverage of the 106 process is that it can delay the decision interminably. It sounds like, rather than actually changing the outcome.
No, I would
No,
disagree with that.
no.
I would disagree with that. It really is to, again, in the umbrella of historic properties and cultural resources, it's to making sure that the effect of a federally funded, permitted project is avoiding an adverse effect if possible, and if not, that it's minimizing what that effect is. But that doesn't mean that the project cannot move forward.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
I get it.
it's really an effort to get a better project
Yes.
that considers things that may not be fully front and center in the eyes of another federal agency.
Right.
Like, a mining project or a highway project, the people that formulate those projects may not have the balancing input from cultural resources people or natural resources people, and they may not know what they're
And
doing.
NEPA works in a similar
NEPA
way.
too.
Again, it's not meant to necessarily stop a project, but to making sure that all different elements are taken into account, so that way the decision-making process by the federal agency is comprehensive. And that way there's a true understanding of what the potential effect or impact is to the particular project area. So NEPA looks at a much larger group of
Impacts.
topics,
Yeah.
whereas for Section 106, it is just focused on what's defined as historic properties, which is historic districts, historic buildings, archaeological sites, landscapes, ethnographic resources, etc.
And NEPA works primarily through the categorical exclusion process. Would that be fair to say?
So for
So
NEPA,
it's a different
yes, you
determination.
have a categorical exclusion, which is the case for this particular project, depending on the level of what the potential impact could be. If there is not a categorical exclusion that would fit a particular project, then it would trigger either an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement, depending on the level of work being proposed.
And a categorical exclusion document is something that has been requested from Mass Highway, and we don't have it. So it's just, there you go. Isn't it the case that even after a determination has been made and the SHPO agrees, that consulting parties could still, or the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation could still take an interest in the project or request a meeting?
So if the determination of effect is issued and the SHPO concurs with that, it would have to be some pretty sort of mitigating circumstances for the Advisory Council to step in. Typically, the Advisory Council would step in if the process wasn't properly followed, or if there's some, some circumstances that they feel, but typically, if the SHPO concurs and there's not a major red flag, they wouldn't necessarily come into the process.
Okay.
Simone?
Richard?
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, and then Bob.
I have a different topic.
Oh, okay. Let me just quick question. As far as what is a historic resource, if a resource has lost its character due to modern civilization changing it so drastically that it doesn't look at all historic anymore, is it still a historic resource because it could be reclaimed?
So under the definition through Section 106, so it's identified as a historic property. So and the identification of integrity and significance is tied to whether it's listed in the National Register of Historic Places or is deemed eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. So, and that is concurred with by the SHPO as well as then the keeper of the National Register. So in this particular case, for example, so Minuteman National Historical Park is a historic district. So it is listed in the National Register, has been listed in the National Register for for quite some time, and its level of integrity has remained intact. So you could look at if, for example, there was an individual resource that was listed individually outside of a historic district for a particular project. If for some reason that individual resource has lost integrity, it would be delisted from the National Register. There's a process associated with that, i.e. it got demoed or something tragically horrible. But generally the level of significance and integrity is identified through a National Register nomination or through what's called a determination of eligibility form for a particular resource.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other comments? Oh, I skipped over something, didn't I? We didn't talk about next meeting. Oh, Richard, sorry, I'm forgetting you.
Yeah, so one of the responsibilities that I have as secretary is that I have to report on an annual basis about membership. And the folks in Lincoln and Lexington, I think, spoke and have given me all that information. And I think the park, I've got the information from the park. I haven't received anything official or even unofficial from Arlington. And I'm looking for that information and trying to understand from Concord whether or not there were, and from Arlington, whether there are term limits to appointments and
I forgot about that.
And how each entity allocates its one vote.
I just sent you something about that because I was remembering that I still owed you some information. There's no, I'll send it more formally. There's no formal process for allocating the vote. I have an opinion about it. And in terms of term limits, our terms are limited. You can be reappointed theoretically, but so I'll send something more formal.
Yeah, because obviously we're taking votes, and so each town needs to figure out how it's allocating its vote, whether there's something formal or not.
With respect to Arlington, Richard, Clarissa and George and I will have to put our heads together and get
I mean, I have the three of you listed as members. We had
assumed that you would get an official submission from the town of Arlington, and that'd be done by Ally Carter's replacement, but that her position has not been filled yet. So we'll have to find someone else in the town government to send along the process in Arlington.
Do you guys not know how you've been appointed?
Oh yeah, we were appointed by the Board of Selectmen at nominated.
For how long?
Nominated to the Board of Selectmen and approved by the Board of Selectmen. I don't recall if there was a specific term set to it. Do you, George?
Yeah, I have an official looking paper actually, but I don't know how to sign.
As do I, but I don't know how to find it right now.
Okay. Yeah,
George, it's interesting. In Lexington, we have like 13 million committees.
Yeah.
And the selectmen have set up a structure so that every committee has term limits and a charge and an expiration date. Some other towns aren't quite as formal as we are, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe I'd like to see that process. See what you do. Okay. Thanks, Richard.
Okay.
We need to talk about a next meeting. The next meeting would be December. Theoretically, we would have to elect officers again, right? It's an annual thing. Is that correct?
I thought it was a 2-year term.
Honestly, I don't remember, and I was going to look that up before the meeting, but does anybody know it by heart like Richard? Maybe.
I distinctly remember that when I became vice chair that I said to myself, okay, I've got 2 years to move out of Massachusetts.
I'll check. All right, I'll check.
Yeah, I believe it is 2 years. That's at least what my term is.
Okay. Well, that's the appointment as a member or as an officer?
As an officer.
2 years. You agree
Yeah.
that it's 2 years?
Yeah.
You do? I'll check it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, if we either do or we don't have to do that before January. So that suggests a meeting that should be scheduled in December. And I used to have December up here, but I'll have to pull it. I'll pull it out. It could be the 4th. What's the 4th? It's probably Christmas. I think I looked this up before.
It's Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
something
sorry. No, I got this wrong.
hang on, I got it. I think 23.
It's
Mm,
Yes.
22nd.
almost Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's very close.
Yeah,
Let's see.
So it should be dependent upon what we hear about the grant.
yeah.
If we don't hear anything, we shouldn't have a December meeting. If we do, then we probably should meet.
Okay, is there general agreement about that? That's my feeling too. That it's going to get very, very busy now. And I think that's why. So the December meeting will depend on whether or not we hear from the grant and when. And if it's not good news, we won't have to meet in
I-
December. And then we'll look at the 4th Tuesday in January or something.
Well, it seems to me December 22nd is too close to
Oh.
Christmas to have it then. It ought to be the 15th, if at all, in December.
Well, it depends on when we hear, doesn't it, a little bit?
I'm just saying, if we hear after, let's say, the
Oh, I see.
13th,
I see what, I
then
see.
let's
what
just
you're
forget
saying.
it till January.
Okay.
You know,
But then
given
rather
that
than
it's
waiting
given
till
that
the
it's going to
4th.
be a special meeting, I don't think we have to limit it to a Thursday. So I would
Yeah.
say
Oh, that's true. Perfectly true.
Just-
All right. So we'll just wait.
Just
and
wait
see.
until we get the word, and then I think, you know, maybe 48 hours notice would
Okay.
be sensible and.
Yeah.
Okay. And it depends. I really want to have Eric Barassa from MAPC at that meeting. So I'll just tell him to keep his calendar flexible, please. And in the meantime, I'll stay in touch with the people I know that are connected with the National Scenic Byway Foundation, and Chris is going to stay in contact with his people. So, okay.
Oh, I do have one other thing now that you mention it. So
Okay. We're
I
almost
got-
at 1 hour.
So I guess part of the question is in terms of what memberships we as a committee have. Hopefully we're still members of Freedom's Way. And I had gotten an email from whatever that National Byway group is saying, do you want to become members to enjoy
Oh,
the
right. I
benefits?
saw that too.
So maybe we should put that on the agenda for next time or something.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I was forgetting that. Okay, and it was something like to join, it costs $150, so. And it's the National Scenic Byway Foundation.
Yeah, so next time then we can talk about what are the benefits, how much does it cost, and is it worth the cost?
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good suggestion. Okay, thank you. I think I can declare the meeting over.
Oh, good.
Is that right, Anne?
Yep.
So thanks everybody. It was good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving, and I hope we have. Oh, Richard, you have one more thing? I thought you were done. Oh, your hand was up. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, and I hope we hear in a positive way, but not too soon. Okay. Thank you all.
You're all
Okay,
welcome.
thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving to all.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.